Oh, hello there. I'm Lily. I was just trying to figure out how timelines work in Undertale, which led me to take notes. And notes for those notes, with notes on top of those notes. I think you get it by now. Anyways, if you're anything like me and want to know how AUs work, this video is for you, and how I, a creator, interpret alternate universes. Remember, you are a creator as well, so how you elucidate your alternate universes are also reliable in your timelines and creations. This video is for how mine work. If yours sounds anything like mine, that's great, because in the end, we're all made up of the same atoms and are bound to come up with parallel solutions. Below, there will be a timestamp if you want to skip a certain section. Now let's get started. To make things simple, let's start with a cute little planet. This planet is alone, no timelines, no choices made, no friends, but tons of potential. Now let's say Papyrus is eating spaghetti on this planet. But what if he didn't eat spaghetti and read a book instead? This is when timelines branch off. They are a multitude of what-if scenarios that break off from the original universe, and in our example, the original Papyrus, each action from every living being, weather event, geological change, and more, create a different branch. These timelines are still connected to the original universe, same root, same tree, different branches, but none have been cut off yet. However, what happens when they do break off? Even if it's a branch from another timeline. Well, once they fall, they are no longer a part of the tree. Sometimes they just sit there, either erased or forgotten. Other times the tree grows back that branch, and the timeline resets like nothing ever happened. Or maybe that branch doesn't stay broken or get erased at all. Instead, it replants itself and starts to grow again. Not as part of the old tree, but as something entirely new. That might sound a bit strange for a tree, but for timelines, it is completely natural. So what happens when that branch replants itself? Well, it takes root and grows into a new tree, or in our case, a whole new universe. That is what we call an AU, or alternate universe. They start as part of a timeline, just a small what if. But once they break off and grow, they become something else entirely. Some AUs keep the same systems as the original. Same rules, same logic, same soul mechanics, even the same characters and code. Or they might build a completely different system from the ground up. New rules, new logic, just different code and maybe the same characters. Either way, they changed enough to stand alone. They aren't branches anymore. They're their own tree. But what now? We know what an AU is. The real question is, where do they go? And that I have the answer to. Now then, let's get into the honey and chocolate of things. Every time an AU is created, it becomes part of something I like to call an AU system. An AU system acts like a solar system. At the center, there's a sun, which is the original AU. Everything else, aka the other AUs in this system, orbit around the original. They all have a magical pull to the original that binds them together, similar to the sun and moon orbiting the Earth. Because of that pull, each of these AUs stay in its place. You'll typically only find one version of each AU per system. When AUs get too similar, this is when things start to glitch out, which can lead to new, albeit corrupted AUs being made. It's like having two save files with the same name in a game. The system can't tell them apart and might overwrite one by accident. It's not that the system can't handle lots of AUs, it's more like the game needs each save file to be clearly labeled. If they're too similar, the game gets confused, Files clash, progress gets mixed up, and eventually the whole system starts to glitch. Even our brains struggle to know which save file is which if we don't play every day. That's why you usually only see one version of each AU in a system. One Undertale, one Dance Tale, and one Underswap. Just enough difference to keep things from clashing. If two nearly identical versions show up at the same time, it throws everything off, and that's when someone like Aerosand steps in to fix the problem. Though, most of the time he doesn't just fix it, he takes things a bit too far, but, that's just error for you. That brings us to our next topic. It's a brief one. What happens when alternate universes don't stay in their AU system? They become something called an outer world. Oh, wait, sorry. Wrong title. Outer system. An outer system is when a timeline breaks off from the original AU system and ends up forming its own. This can happen for a bunch of reasons. Maybe there wasn't enough room, maybe it changed too much, whatever the case, it's a new system with its own set of rules for what it can handle. So in essence, an outer system aren't that different from AU systems, and like all systems, they have a limit, and when those limits get pushed too far, well, that's when we start to see the glitches. Unfortunately, glitches appear in all AU systems. A glitch is what happens when a system breaks in a way it wasn't meant to. That could mean a timeline that repeats too much, corrupts, or acts completely outside of the rules it's supposed to follow, with some AUs blurring that line, like my own AU, War Tales. It started as a repeated genocide timeline, similar to Dust Tales and Something New. It repeated so many times that it's teetering on the edge of corruption. Is it an AU or a glitch pretending to be one? So, we talked about timelines, AU systems, alternate universes, and even glitches. But again, that leads to more questions than answers. Where do all these AU systems and universes reside? Well, they float in the void, a dark, endless space that surrounds and separates AU systems. Basically, it's like outer space. It's mostly empty, silent, cold, but not dead. Because in the void, this is where life begins. From dust to whiffs of vapor to fragments of code, everything drifts here. Forgotten items, deleted ideas, removed characters, even the emotions of creators. It all floats in the void. But not everything that drifts in the void is safe. Sometimes there's fragments of code and deleted characters that amalgamate into void creatures. They can look like anything but are typically white or black, as they have no color code assigned to them. So, if you see one with color, ink is most likely the culprit of that. Void creatures tend to be hostile and aggressive. The most well-known ones are the void worms. They can be as large as a planet or as small as an ant. Because of that, traveling through the void is dangerous. That's why some prefer the anti-void. The anti-void is the opposite of the void. Instead of black, it's white. Endless white. It's everything the void is not. Quiet, lonely, empty. Or at least, that's what it was meant to be. Sometimes, debris from the void slips in anyways. The anti-void doesn't just erase things, it erodes them. Not with time, but with silence, with isolation. It's like being trapped in a room where nothing moves, nothing changes, and your voice echoes forever. That's why most who end up in the anti-void go a little insane. Nothing was meant to live there. They were meant to be forgotten. It's a space that presses down on your mind until the static becomes a part of you. It's not a prison made of walls. It's made of emptiness. So while the void is dangerous and alive, the anti-void is still, in many ways, much worse if you're weak-minded. However, those that are strong-minded can mold a space inside the anti-void, which leads us to pocket dimensions. They are isolated spaces created by powerful beings, creators, or those with a strong will. One of the most famous pocket dimensions is the doodle sphere created by ink. and the Omega timeline founded by Core Frisk. Also, just a quick reminder, this is how I imagine alternate universes and the spaces between them and the worlds I create. Now let's keep going. Unlike AU systems, pocket dimensions don't follow any set cosmic structure. They aren't part of the void or anti-void by default. Instead, they're woven into realities where their creator chooses. They're great for storage, testing, hiding, training, and more, especially if the timeline you're from doesn't exist anymore. Unfortunately, some characters live in pocket dimensions because they don't belong anywhere else. And this brings us to our final topic, creators. That's right, you and me. We're the ones who bring these worlds to life. Everything starts with us. As soon as a creator begins thinking about a world, even before it's drawn, written, or fully imagined, it already exists as a creator cloud. They look like floating gas clouds drifting in the void. Half thoughts, incomplete concepts, a what if waiting for meaning. These clouds start as subconscious thoughts. They gather bits from the debris around them, memories, emotions, pieces of code, traces of magic. Over time, if they grow strong enough, they become a full thought, a new AU. They either merge into an existing AU system, create their own, or form full pocket dimensions. But not all of them make it. Some unfortunately fade away before they ever become something more. Sometimes Ink in my universe gather these gas clouds in paint buckets and put them in his doodle sphere to protect them. They stay in these paint buckets with ink helping to deliver debris from the void, even after they become an AU. So in this case, the paint bucket acts as the AU system, or the creator chooses to place them somewhere else once they fully form. So, what have we learned so far? We've learned that I like to make things too complicated by trying to understand every little detail about everything. I even made a section about void creatures, but I scrapped it because I didn't want to make this video too long. We also talked about how I see things in my alternate universes, but again, just a reminder, this is my personal headcanon and how I choose to understand AUs in the world I create. Thank you for watching, and always, remember, even the hardest moments are just that, moments in your life. You're doing great so far, and you'll get through this difficult moment. I believe in you.